Yeah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Article 10 TV with myself, Jordan Pink. Now, a little bit unusual this evening, but I have got a very special guest with me this evening, and you guys know exactly who he is. So, without further hesitation, introduce yourself, buddy.
Hey guys, Richard Flopper. Welcome back to Mind Over Mainstream.
That, that was pre-arranged, of course. A little bit of a joke there for you guys. So, the show ended quite abruptly between the three of us. It was because of a fallout between myself and Nigel, and Richard didn't really have anything to do with that. He was just kind of caught in the middle of it. And with them both being brothers, I had to cut ties with both of them just for a little while, clear my head, and decide what I was going to do. But as it happens, it's been kind of fruitful for both of us, at least, because we've both got more focus and driven towards a new goal and a new project. And obviously, the guys watching this will know about Article 10 TV and the clothing range that I've been launching as well to go in line with it. But tell us a little bit about what you're doing at the moment, Flopper.
So, obviously, when we were hosting together, I always had ideas of hosting some sort of true crime TV. I'm not shameless plug, Mr. Ballin, John B. Allen started on TikTok in 2020 and instantly became a hit, and then his YouTube channel took off. But I love soaking in true crime. I could quote many True Crime Kent and so many other true crime podcasts, and I always admired those guys and thought I could do some of this. So then when the opportunity came up to be a host on Mind Over Mainstream, I was like, I want to be the funny guy, or I want to be the fat guy, or I want to be fact guy, or this guy or that guy. And it transpired into this whole new growing thing of its own. So when Mind Over Mainstream just ended, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it. So I started up True Crime with Richard Flopper. I've got a few episodes out, only short ones at the moment, but there's a calm and a sense of beauty about doing what I'm doing. And I feel more free. It's harder to host on your own, especially when it's more script based and telling stories and facts and stuff like that. But I feel so alive doing it. And yeah, like thank
So,
you for having me on the show. And I want to congratulate you, Jordan, on doing what you're doing, by the way. Fantastic job, man.
yeah, so I mean, I've got obviously the true crime channel up of yours on the screen at the moment. We are sharing that with the viewers. And you've done a good job of it. The artwork's nice and clean. I've watched all your episodes so far. I'm a bit of a fan, I'm not gonna lie. I do like it. I like what you're doing, and it's good to watch you grow into the show as well. The confidence is starting to come through, and I think what we did with Mind Over Mainstream was practice for all of us, really, for the future. So it's fantastic. And guys, please do jump on there and give him some support. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. There's no love lost between either of us. We're still buddies. We have recently got back in touch because I think everyone needed a bit of a break after the fallout. But onwards and upwards, I say, at the end of the day. And we're both working on our own projects, and you've come on the show tonight with me, and I'm going to come on and return the favor with you on Friday evening's hopefully episode, and give a
Yeah,
little bit of a true crime story of my own as well in the process. So
yeah,
looking
yeah.
forward to that, definitely.
I was always like when I used to speak to you about it off camera, away from the script and everything that we used to do. When we used to speak about it, I used to say, Jordan, I want to do this, I want to do that, and you used to say, oh, I'd love a bit of that, I'd love a bit of that. And then when we spoke earlier on today, and you said, I'd be up for that. I've got a story planned already. I'm looking forward to it. So hopefully, guys, Friday 7 p.m. there will be an episode out, and it will feature Jordan. It will be one of my stories on there as well, but there'll be one of Jordan's stories too. True crime is for everybody. If you're interested in stuff like that. And once again, congratulations, Jordan, on moving forward in what you're doing. And I'm glad to be a part of this show with you tonight. And thank you so much for having me on,
No
and
problem. It's a
I'll
pleasure.
let you break the show in, man.
Yeah, so while we're on the
Sorry, in true, I don't want to keep bringing up mind over mainstream, but in true mind over mainstream fashion, Jordan is the guy that's got all the facts in the bag. He's got everything there, and he's gonna be bringing me along, and hopefully I can entertain you and give you my thoughts. But this is his show, and I'm gonna let the man cook. I love you, Jordan.
Yeah, yeah, love you too, brother. So yeah, in the true crime fashion, in a way. So a gentleman that came over on a small boat and was housed in a hotel in Epping in Kent, um, attacked three different young underage girls over the course of the first 8 days of being in the country. Now, you all probably know what I'm talking about already. It's the Epping Bell Hotel incident. It flared up on Friday after the third incident, and since then, the community have clubbed together in true community fashion. And I wouldn't mess with a community anywhere in Kent, to be honest with you. Them guys have already been pushed out of East London into their nice little suburban area. And basically, the overall feeling is that they're fucked if they're going to move again. This time, they're going to fight for their homes, which they probably should have done originally in the first place. But no time like the present to stand up and fight for freedom at the end of the day and for your rights. So, and that's what the podcast is all about. Article 10 TV, Article 10 being the Article 10 of the ECHR, which is the freedom of expression and freedom of speech without interference by authority. And that stands whether the person taking the information from you likes what they're hearing or not. So if you don't like it, fuck off. Simple. Anyway, so on Friday, July the 18th, just gone, protests started outside the Bell Hotel, which houses asylum seekers, following earlier unrest sparked by an asylum seeker's arrest for alleged sexual assault. So I will say that because obviously there is due process in law, and I'm hoping that the law is going to be followed in this instance, but we all have our doubts about whether it will do. Now, officers did arrive at the scene to try and calm it down. Although it wasn't really unruly, there wasn't much unrest. There was singing, there was happiness and cheering. There was the odd chance of, save our kids and things like that. And there was kids present, there was grandparents present, and it was a nice atmosphere. Um, Now, the council did release a statement in the build up to that because they were made aware of the protest taking place that evening. And they even released a statement on social media sites saying that it had been cancelled in an effort to try and disrupt the plans. But it didn't work because the locals were not buying it. They're all in community, they're all in contact with each other. So, dirty tricks like that not going to work when you're dealing with a strong, solidified community. So the leader of the Epping Forest District Council condemned the violence and praised the peaceful protesters, which rightfully so he should, and reiterated calls to the Home Office to close the hotel, citing its unsuitability. Now, throughout the evening, I watched the events quite closely. I was very in tune with the timeline of what was going on. And what had happened was far left agitators, paid for by NGOs with their already pre-prepared, lovely, flashy boards, were ferried in from the train station and basically marched to the Bell Hotel by police with their little protection squad. Um, that massively backfired really because there wasn't enough agitators to take on the crowd that were there. There was already hundreds of people there from the local community, and they were local. What wasn't local was the agitators that were being brought in by the police because they came by train. And we know this because obviously through the night they were filmed, the police putting them in buses, which just happened to be riot vans, and taken back to the train station to get them the hell out of there because it was no longer safe for them. They were hugely outnumbered. So, what are your thoughts on that so far, Flopper? I mean, Friday night it started off peaceful, and then the agitators swooped in to try and cause some kind of unrest and ultimately reach the end of violence when the police could move in and start arresting people. It's a tactic we've become all familiar with, being on the right wing of politics these days.
Yeah, it's not even strange. It's not even strange to hear, really. I mean, the fact that they were brought in, they were taken out. It's it's up and down the country, really. It's everywhere you look, and obviously this goes back to the days of hosting the original show and stuff, and what you're talking about now, more of an in-depth outlook on it, really. You need to be aware of what's going on. There's a political landscape out there. Everyone wants your vote. Um, and I think the heart of the crime, which I think should be touched upon, is probably the reason why the people came out in force in a community. And it's not just happening once anymore, it's happening up and down the country. Don't you think,
Yeah.
Jordan?
Yeah, definitely. And we're starting to see more scenes of unrest and protests all over the country. There was one in Newcastle as well on Saturday. Also Dover, the beach on Dover. Hundreds, if not thousands, of patriots poured onto the beaches of Dover to show their discontent and their displeasure with the what's going on. Basically, the border force have become a taxi service for people that the French are escorting to the middle of the channel. And we're aware of it. You know, we've got people like Active Patriot that are on the ground in Calais. They're in boats in the Channel. They're showing the tracking of the French naval forces, the French border force, and the British border force. British Navy nowhere to be seen, of course. Which does lie the question. I mean, the first principle of a government is to keep the citizens safe and the borders secure. Now, in my book, that means that this government and the one prior to that have failed beyond recognition. They failed at the first hurdle. So really, all we're getting is broken promises and waffle from above now, which doesn't help anybody, and it certainly doesn't help de-escalate tensions across the country. So anyway, on Saturday there was a follow-up to it. A little bit of a scuffle did break out. But before we jump onto Saturday, I want to mention that after they'd escorted the far left agitators, the Stand Up to Racism and Hope Not Hate groups that are funded by us, the taxpayer, because they're funded by the government. And as you all know, anything funded by the government is funded by us. We pay for it. Um, After that didn't work, and the police basically were left with their dick in their hands and having to remove these people from the scene by bus. We'll call them buses, just to humour Essex police. Um, that didn't work. So when the protesters started making their way back to the Bell Hotel, and the police very quickly realised, shit, we don't have all of our officers down there. We've got to get down there quick. They then proceeded to ram. Someone had put some roadworks in the middle of the road just to stop the van from getting through. The first one rammed that. The second one hit two of the protesters. Took one 20 feet across the road and knocked another one down. Injuries occurred, and from that moment on, people started smashing the riot vans, jumping on them, throwing bricks and stones at them, and that's when the violence really kicked off. Also, during the course of the night, someone got their front teeth smashed out by just sharing their aggression with the police. Maybe they were too close, but they were assaulted by a police officer, and that didn't help the situation. So it sort of went on from there. And then we had the mainstream media picked up on it. Now, the mainstream media, as we all know, is just a complete mouthpiece for the government. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to jump into another quick screen share there with you guys. Don't need to do sound for now, so let's share this and we'll get up some of the headlines from the following day. So police say asylum protest turned into thuggery. Well, surprise, surprise. That'll happen when you go around knocking people's teeth out, escorting agitators into the scene, and running protesters over. Eventually, you're going to get to your end goal, which is create the violence that you can then come in with the pre-prepared solution. Heavy-handed and threaten everybody with arrest if they don't leave, which is what they wanted. isn't it, really, at the end of the day? We all know their tactics by now. So 6 people have been arrested following the latest protest outside a hotel to house asylum seekers in Essex, and that's been updated an hour ago. So that does include Saturday and Sunday, which we'll get into in just a minute. But that's the BBC headline. Then you've got Sky News' headline: Epping protests are just the latest flashpoint of frustration. Now, Sky News, surprisingly, have been a little bit more conservative with their headline here. Between the protesters and those housed inside the Bell Hotel in Epping, around 50 police officers in riot gear lined up beside 8 riot vans. All true, of course. And there is a little video on here, but I'm not going to show this because I've had a bit of issue playing videos on news sites. We get absolutely bombarded with pop-ups. So this was the fourth protest in just 9 days here. Even I wasn't aware of that. Where around 500 people gathered outside the Bell Hotel in Epping, which is believed to house asylum seekers. There was no sign of far right or left that had travelled to the Essex town looking for trouble. That's where the contradiction comes in because the police wouldn't have had to escort them to the scene and back to the train station if they were local. And that's the argument there. And then we've got The Guardian. 5 arrested as more than 1,000 protesters gather outside Essex Asylum Hotel. And the same picture from the last headline as well. Demonstrators chant, "Send them home and save our kids," as bottles and flares thrown at police blocking the entrance. Not entirely true. Again, the trouble didn't kick off until the police crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. But still quite surprising to see such a conservative take from The Guardian of all papers. And then we've got The Standard, which goes full on Starmer. Epping protest. Number 10 slams violent thugs after 6 arrested during the latest migrant hotel demonstration. And it shows here a crowd of people. I will play this one because I played it earlier and it did work. I'm not entirely sure if it's going to... No, it's not going to work. Okay. Oh, we're getting the views. So we're not getting any sound here. But I'm going to talk you through what's going on. So over on the right hand side here, you see the protesters. And on the left, just out of view, are some of the left-wing agitators that are being escorted from the premises. And as you can see, riot van with a smashed windscreen. They're visibly frustrated and they're visibly upset, aren't they, these people? You know, and understandably so, because the young children, young girls in their area are being attacked relentlessly by people that are being housed and protected in the hotels. Similar scenes to what we're seeing all over the country, isn't it, Flopper?
Yeah, absolutely. And personally, as I'm branching out into true crime, should I feature any of these stories on my new YouTube channel or anything like that, I'm pretty sure they'll be shut down pretty quick when we start talking about who's protected and who's not in the UK.
Yeah,
And I think the news articles you've just read out there show who's protected and who's not protected. And that is why people are showing out en masse
yeah.
to to put themselves in the limelight and say, come on, like we can't have any more of this.
And one thing I will point out as well, I don't know whether you guys noticed as I was reading through the 4 different headlines and just basically the punchline into the first part of the story, the inconsistencies, because all 4 of them stories have been updated in the last few hours. One said 4 arrested, one said 1 arrested, another said 6 arrested. Um, One said 500 people were there, another said thousands were there, another said dozens, and another said hundreds. The inconsistencies are rife. And what makes me wonder is, do the mainstream media even research anything anymore? Do they even do any journalism? Or do they just spew the same dribble that they're hearing other people say? Um, you know, it does beg the question, don't you think?
I think they rely on people on the scene, whether there's a cameraman, a news reporter, a social media influencer, or someone like that, and they just take their facts from there. Which obviously, us as social media influencers or wannabes ourselves, like we don't have 100% the facts, but you would depend on your local news source to have 100% agreeable facts across the board, and we
Yeah.
just don't have that in the UK anymore, do we?
No, no, no. It's almost like they don't, like the left hand has never even met the right hand and they're just winging it. and that can be dangerous because that's where we're accused of misinformation and disinformation and all these other fancy words that they've created to shut us up. But the reality of the situation is we're no more guilty of it than the people that we trust to bring us the news at the end of the day. So, I'll always try and do plenty of research. I'll always try and back up what I'm saying with facts. And if I can bring receipts, I do. Which is why I've started to use my screen sharing function a lot in the new podcast because I want to be able to show where I'm looking for my information so you guys can look in the same places or look in other places and see if you can find even more contradicting facts. Always makes it a little bit more interesting investigating that way, I think. So Saturday, a 33-year-old man from Loughton, Keith Silk, I don't know whether I should have named him there, but he was arrested on suspicion of violent disorder and criminal damage related to Thursday's protest. Now, I wasn't even aware there was a protest on Thursday until today. This has been going on for over a week now. He was charged and remanded in custody for a court appearance on Monday, July the 21st, which is after the weekend. So it's actually tomorrow, isn't it? No, hold on. What date are we on now? It is the 21st today, isn't it? He would have been in court today. So I'd be interested to find out what's happened there. The fact that he was charged and remanded in custody for criminal damage or violent disorder, it's not really something that they remand you on, but then the fact that he was arrested through the weekend, quite often, if they want you in court as soon as possible, they will hold you in the cells through the weekend and just bus you to the court on the Monday morning. I know that because I've been caught on a Friday night, stupidly, pissed and fighting, and got hauled into court on a Monday morning, feeling like absolute arse. Slept with a plastic wool blanket on a fucking 2 inch thick mattress on a rock hard surface the whole weekend, and eaten basically microwave lasagna for 3 days, which is gross, by the way.
Been there.
So yeah, I wouldn't recommend the food in prison. If you like food, definitely don't go to jail. Now, Essex police continued analysing footage from body-worn cameras and drones and social media to identify suspects involved in the Thursday clashes. So obviously he was arrested due to the Thursday night's protest, which wasn't as highly covered on social media or on the mainstream news at all.
Can I just say that when they speak about just reading that note there, I've read it several times and I still can't make heads or tails of it. Social media.
Yeah,
Isn't that personal to all of us? Shouldn't that be personal to all of us? It's social media. We post it socially, and yeah, there are people posting social media content who will be at said demonstrations and riots and stuff like that. But that's an invasion of privacy for the police to start taking people's random content and
yeah.
using it to catch criminals.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I mentioned this in an episode I did last night. Well, I attempted to do last night with the technical difficulty and terrible internet connection I was suffering with. But yeah, the invasion on privacy is also it's a clampdown on our rights because every man and woman and child has the right to a private life. But then again, if
Yeah.
you look on the flip side of it, if they're putting it all over social media, it's no longer private, is it? So
Yeah.
it's six of one and half a dozen
Yeah.
of the other, sadly. But just to keep us up to date, we'll go into Sunday, yesterday. Over 1,000 demonstrators gathered outside the Bell Hotel on Sunday, and again started off perfectly peacefully. Um, there was ladies, lots of groups of ladies there chanting, "Take them home" or "Send them home" and "Save our kids." And I've got some footage of that on my Twitter feed. I'm going to share with us in a little while. Some set off flares and held signs like "Deport foreign criminals." None of which are controversial statements. They're all fair enough to say. It's a freedom of speech thing. Violence and arrests. So the protest turned violent with bottles and smoke flares thrown at police vans. 6 people were arrested, including 4 for violent disorder from Thursday's protest, and 1 tracked by a police helicopter for damaging an unmarked police vehicle. Now, I don't know whether we're going to find it in the feed that we'll look at in a little while, but there was a unmarked police car that was smashed in basically. I think that someone had recognized the person driving it as a police officer trying to be undercover. Um, And it shouldn't have been down there anyway because the police had the road cordoned off. So what they was doing with an unmarked car down there was, it was, it was, well, I guess it's neither here or there now because it got smashed up. But there's a growing frustration with the police force in this country because it shows that they're quite ready to protect agitators and criminals before they're willing to protect their own people. And this is where the problem's coming from because rather than go into that hotel, raid it, check it for all this, check all their phones for possibilities of filming children in parks. I mean, the police aren't blind. They've all got social media accounts. They must be seeing what we're seeing. You know, foreigners being caught in parks, playgrounds, filming young children, harassing girls on their way home from schools, colleges, work. It's becoming a common theme, especially within the vicinity of these migrant hotels. And people are not wrong to be pointing this out. It's not racist. It's not prejudice in any way, shape, or form. If anything, it's a genuine and righteous complaint against the people that call themselves our government, because they're not doing the basics, which is keep the borders secure, keep the citizens safe, as I mentioned earlier. It's the number one principle of a government, The first, it's like you could say you had one job. You had one job and you fucked it already, you know. But anyway, counter protest incident. An elderly woman counter protesting was escorted away by police after being targeted with missiles and abuse by masked protesters. There's a little bit of a lie in that. It wasn't masked protesters. One person was wearing a mask, and I think that was AY Audits. I think he had something for covering the lower part of his face. Um, there were no masked protesters. These people are local people. They have no reason to hide their face, much like any of us do if we go to a Patriot rally in London with Tommy Robinson, for example. There's no face coverings being worn by the people that are there for good reasons. The only people that wear face coverings are people that have a reason to hide themselves, and they're the ones that are causing the trouble. Quite often, Antifa, or Hope Not Hate, or Stand Up to Racism, or even, in some counts, police officers in disguise that infiltrate these crowds, agitate and cause trouble, start it and then bail out. It's a fray. There's an actual legal charge for that behaviour. It's a fray, and if the police are bringing in undercover people to do these sort of things, then they're instigating violence so that they can round people up and then send them to jail for it, which is very, very naughty. And that's all I'll say on that matter. But yeah, fair play to the elderly woman. I saw the footage. She was being shouted at. She was being barked at. She probably had a few things thrown at her. Not doubting that. I'm not trying to deny that, of course. I did see the footage myself. Fucking, she had bigger balls than most of Antifa, though. She wasn't wearing a mask. She turned up by herself. Fair play, because that was the busiest night so far with over 1,000 people present. The police measures were a Section 60 AA order was enforced, banning face coverings like balaclavas until 4 a.m. Monday, with arrests threatened for non-compliance. Epping High Road was closed for several hours. And that's how I know that there was no local protesters wearing masks, because they were banned. They would have been arrested immediately and carted on their way. And as we've seen, from earlier on already, there were 6 arrests made. 4 of them were due to the actions on Thursday, and one of them was due to smashing up the undercover police vehicle. So that leaves one person. Was it one person wearing a mask? In which case, why are they describing it in the plural sense? Just to escalate their narrative again. And a police statement, Chief Superintendent Simon Anslow condemned the mindless thuggery, noting one officer was injured and a police vehicle damaged. He emphasised that the violence did not represent Epping's community. And he's probably right to say that, but at the same time, the violence from police running protesters over and smashing their front teeth out probably shouldn't be a representation of Essex Police Force. But somehow it has been over the weekend. So nobody's clean or innocent in this situation. And the police up to their same usual tricks. What are your thoughts on that so far? So that's the weekend up to date.
So, for me, are you asking me?
Yeah.
All the people. For me, okay, so obviously branching out into true crime podcasting and stuff like that, one of the things that really sticks in my mind is Lucy Connolly. And sorry, Jordan, another shameless plug. I've done an episode on a short episode, Lucy Connolly, and what people face for actually standing up for themselves or standing up for a community. And what Jordan's just done there is list so many other reasons why people are being careful about what they're doing, and what he's brought receipts and backed up people, like they're not wearing face coverings, they're not, they're just trying to protect their community. And wow, like Epping, you need to do better for your citizens. And obviously let's not forget where Epping is, what it's surrounded by. um and I think maybe some good citizens came out to do some good work. And well, as usual, if you come out and you're trying to be right, you're just considered far right.
Yeah, yeah. It's the same brush we've all been tarred with now, really, because if you're genuinely concerned, if you want to voice your concerns about anything, if you want to protest, which is our legal right to do so as well, people think protest and they go, oof, and they wince a little bit because it's like, oh, it's just riots. It's not. I've been to
No.
so many of these so-called far right protests where it's been a nice atmosphere. People are having fun, singing, meeting up with people that they've only ever seen on social media, taking selfies. I've had people approach me in London. Oh my God, you're masculine emotion from TikTok. Can I take a selfie with you? And it's like, yeah, random stranger, why not? Let's do it. You know? And I'm sure you've probably experienced something like that too as well, Flopper.
No, I remember back when we first started the show, people were expecting big things, and I know that you were there in some of them big protests and stuff. And obviously, you and I both live very, very far away from London. But I remember what it was like. I remember that feeling, every time I went to London, and when you was in London on them protests and stuff. Like, oh, they weren't protests, they were parades. We were showing that we were proud of our country. And I remember when you were there and all the good reports and the good rapport and stuff. But I'm
Yeah.
sure there were little channels, back channels of the whole demonstration that were shivved off, if you know what I mean. But
Well,
I'm pretty sure you had a good time.
my experience was, and I took my son to one of them. He's only just turned 20, and he's never been to any major big events or anything like that, other than a football game, for example. You know, he's been places where there's lots of people and it's busy and buzzing and vibrant, but he wasn't expecting. I mean, I took him to the one in October, I think it was last year, just before Tommy got locked away. Or it might
Yeah.
have been just after he got locked away. But there was probably 150,000 people. If I was to hazard a guess, I would have said it well over 100,000. You know, I mean, I'm not a fucking AI. I can't just scan a fucking crowd and go, right, there's exactly 317,425 people there, but it was well over 100,000 people. I've been to big cup finals and there's been 70, 80,
I was
100,000 people there.
I was just going to ask you this. Have you been to concerts like whether it be in arenas or something like that, when you think,
Yeah.
oh, this arena or this party in a park will hold
Well, I've been to the new
13,000,
Wembley.
fourteen
That's a
thousand?
90,000 seater, you know, new Wembley. And when that
I,
pours
I've
out, it pours out.
I've
And
been there as well. So
yeah,
when you're in a place like London and everyone's demonstrating the same thing, and you can't see nothing but you know Union Jacks or St George's
yeah,
Crosses
a
for
sea of
miles and
red,
miles,
white, and blue.
streets and streets. You are talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. You
Yeah.
really are. You're not exaggerating when you say those numbers, by the way, Jordan.
No, if
They are
anything, I'm
there.
being conservative, to be honest with you. The last one I was at, I mean, my son turned around and went, it's about 1 million people here. Do you know what I mean? And he's been to big football matches too. So for him to say that, and probably his biggest day out was 70, 80,000 people. So that's the contrast, you know. He thought 1 million, and he's already seen 70, 80,000 people in one small space together. So who knows how many people were there? It's not like they take tickets on the way into the fucking town, so we'll maybe never know. But the footage that you see after these events, seas of red, white, and blue, like you say, flags, Union Jacks, England tops, all kinds of patriotic clothing, you know, and such. It's really, really good feeling. It's a really, really calm, happy, family orientated event. There was other children there. My friends had brought their children along. One of them actually nearly passed out because it was such a hot day, and we had to get her a drink from the local bar quickly and rehydrate the poor girl. But they've always been a really good day, and the only time there's any sign of trouble is when the police start to hang around outside pubs where the last few remaining patriots have gone for drinks, and they wait for them
Hmm.
to get drunk, and then they move in and they'll arrest one of the crowd just to try and incite trouble. It's a classic old trick. They do it all the time, hanging around outside the pubs, telling barmen to shut the doors and lock people in or lock people out when they know full well there's groups of people that have now just been separated by a police act, funneling and kettling people down streets and then arresting 50 to 100 random people for no reason at all, other than they were just
Yeah.
there at the moment. It's
Hmm.
it's it's classic police, especially City of London police. They're another breed. And these are the guys that have been shipped down to Epping. I've got to point that out because the ones that are causing all of this chaos, they're not local Epping or Essex police officers. They're
Nope.
heavily hardened single men with no families and no morals and no fucking guilt being shipped down from London just for the violence that they're then going to instigate, you know? And it's a classic, Essex is close enough to London for that. If it had been somewhere like, I don't know, the middle of fucking Norwich, you wouldn't have seen that. It would have been Norwich local police, it would have stayed calm, and it would have been a peaceful protest. The thing is, and I know it was mentioned on last night, a few of the girls on scene through Urban Scoop Media requested Tommy Robinson to come down to the hotel. And he replied. He did respond because Urban Scoop, he's worked with him before. He's quite familiar with the company. I think he still does bits of work with him now as an independent journalist. So he responded on X and he said, "Do you know what? I'm going to come down next Sunday. I'm going to bring thousands of people with me." Since then, we've seen a local lady from the area appear on GB News, and she said, "To be quite frank, we don't really want him there." And that wasn't anything against Tommy per se, but they want to keep this a community movement. They don't want thousands of people coming from outside because that just gives the police another excuse, doesn't it? It gives them another tail to wag at the end of the day because then they can say agitators from all over the country descended on the scene and officers were outnumbered. Do you know what I mean? And it paints an even worse picture of the movement. It's grassroots at the moment. It's one community against this whole thing being forced into their area. And even Tommy since has made a video today expressing his concerns and his doubts about going down there now that he said he will. And he's like, look, I don't want to go down there with thousands of people from outside of Epping and make this about more than just Epping. It's their movement. And if they succeed in getting the government to take notice and shut down this hotel, what kind of message does that send to the rest of the country? It sends the message of victory. It sends a message that local communities can fight this and win. And that's so important when we want to win our country back as a whole for the nation, of a people for the nation. It's so important to know that we can get a W. And I think we're all rooting now for Epping to get that hotel shut down, get all of them migrants shipped out of their community. The minute that happens, I think you'll see protests popping up all over the country outside these migrant hotels. I think it will start a revolution that they will not be able to put the lid back on. And I mean, what do you think about it, Flopper? Personally, your thoughts about it? Because that's just my thoughts. I'm very rarely wrong about these things, which is quite often why I won't speak until I've made my mind up. But I mean, you've got a different insight to it as well, because you used to be a little bit more liberal than myself.
Yeah, so for me, I was always the calmer one on the show, but listening to you talk there, this is your new show and everything you're explaining there makes perfect sense. I mean, listen, I'm a fan of Tommy Robinson. I won't hide that. Politically, where I align or anything like that, just because I'm gonna branch out into doing true crime and stuff like that, I'm still in love with my country. And I think you've just hit the nail on the head. Tommy is not going to go and save every fucking town and city in the UK. Some people have got to do it for themselves. And I think if there is a win, if there is a W, if there is a victory in this, it will be the very fact that the community stood up for themselves instead of waiting for someone to march in and say, we're bringing hundreds of thousands. I think it's amazing, to be fair. And I think that the episode, by the way, congratulations, Jordan. This episode you've put together. And thank you for inviting me to co-host with you on this one. It hits some nails on some heads and it sorts the men from the boys. And Epping is not, they don't need Tommy. They don't need savior from anything but the government. I dare say that. And I think they're stepping up to save themselves.
Yeah,
And that stands alone as a beautiful thing in our nation.
absolutely, absolutely. And I don't think I don't. I think in a way, Tommy turning up with thousands of his, and he could get 100,000 people there if he wanted to in the flick of a switch. I think that would damage what they've done so far, the progress they've made so far. And I know that little bits of violence have clicked off, and a few bad actors have smashed windscreens and cars, and some of that was a reaction to police-led violence and police-led instigation, of course. But other instances where I can't really comment on, like Thursday, I just said I didn't even know there was a protest Thursday. I only cottoned onto this story Friday night. So I can't speak for Thursday. I don't know what happened. I'm fortunate, really, that I only found out this evening. Otherwise, I might have done a little bit more research and looked at the before Friday. But it is what it is. I mean, I can only work with what I know. So I don't really want to comment on Thursday. But if it seems like the majority of the arrests that the police have carried out were a result of whatever happened on Thursday evening. Which to me only seems that since this has become under the national spotlight and it's been heavily put on social media and it's all over the airwaves, the fact that there are more eyes on this now has maybe in a way kind of settled the locals a little bit. And they've not been as violent on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday as perhaps they may have been when the eyes weren't on them on Thursday. Which also leads me to believe maybe there was some outside influence on Thursday. I don't know, like I say. But anyway, listen, what I want to do now is jump into my X feed. I've done a hashtag Epping to separate from all of the Hitler posts and all kinds of crazy crap that you'll see on Twitter and the mass murders that are going on in Syria of the Druze, Christians, and non-Muslims. We will go into that in another episode. But before I do, we're going to take a brief break to hear from our sponsors. Ladies and gentlemen, while I've still got your attention, don't forget to smash a like on the video. Also, subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have, hit the notification bell so you get notified of all future posts and videos. Also, don't forget we've launched a new clothing brand to run in line with the podcast, Article 10 Clothing. The link is in the video description and on the main channel page. Now, without further ado, let's get back to the show. And welcome back to the show, people. So, after the little brief break there, I've been working on my intros and my ads and my outros and everything. Got the music license as well for the music I'm using, which is it's great really because it gives me a little bit of freedom there. I'm not as musically talented as yourself and your brother, um, but yeah, it's I'm working on it. It's a work in progress. I did have a lot of technical difficulties going live last night because, as you know, that's new to even me, the live streaming side of things as well. And we had a right hoot trying to do the first few live streams we did on Mind Over Mainstream as well, didn't we?
I
Many.
remember it was hilarious.
We,
It
we
was
we thought
hilarious.
we thought we were having a 5 minute break and we didn't mute our own mics so everyone can hear us in the background chatting and laughing away and they're all saying in the chat we can hear you, we can hear you, and it's like, oh
I
fuck.
remember. I remember it was hilarious. We were congratulating each other on being masters of the universe. We're
Yeah, that's
hosting
it.
this live. You're doing well and everything.
We're smashing it, guys, and we have a little
Yeah.
giggle and
And then
yeah,
the comments started because we all had our mobile phones going. The comments were going, "We can still hear you." I remember.
amateur hour, amateur hour, but it was funny.
Absolutely,
It was
it
funny.
was.
So anyway, getting back into the show, guys. So obviously I've made some claims here, but I haven't brought the receipts yet. But in true Jordan Pink fashion, you're gonna get them. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna share my X feed, my Twitter feed, with you guys. Oh, hang on a minute. I'll go back because I'm not sure whether I checked the right options for that. We need to share sound, optimize for video sharing, and there we go. So now hopefully this should play without too much issue. So the first post here you can see using the hashtag Epping, and you guys can do this. Just type in hashtag Epping at the top there in the bar, hit return, and it will bring back all of the little bits of coverage so you can check all of this is legit. So someone's asking, can police explain why they didn't nick this balaclava wearing troublemaker? Also, if you noticed on the video, it says the 20th of 7th, 2025. People demanding the masked ones take their face coverings off because, as I mentioned earlier, there was a Section 60AA in place banning all face coverings. And yet there were certain individuals that the police weren't tackling, which led the locals to believe that these were agitators from outside the area. And they couldn't confirm or deny that because you couldn't see their face. So we'll jump into this one quickly and hopefully this plays without problem. As you can see, it's still fairly peaceful. There are people that are annoyed about him wearing a face covering. I think he's trying to argue that it's just a motorbike balaclava. Absolute unit of a man though, eh?
About 7'2".
Yeah.
Take your bellies off!
And that's the locals calling, take the bellies off. There we go. I think that's the video there. So we'll jump out of full screen there quickly. As you can see, what kind of woke liberal refugees welcome types look like this, and why are they covering their faces even with sunglasses? Now this is a well-known tactic of the police as well, by the way. I'm not saying it is police officers, but the fact that they were being escorted to and from the site by police officers does kind of raise the question, were they infiltrators? Were they there to try and slip into the local community side of things to start trouble, and then obviously have the locals painted with that brush? And then you can see here, it's only a short video, but the agitators being escorted into the site by police.
So just seeing some asylum seekers here being escorted.
And asylum seekers being brought back to the hotel.
So just.
So they protect the asylum seekers, which I'm not saying they're all guilty of sexual assault and stuff, but it's amazing how quick they'll jump to their aid and their rescue, and yet they'll leave our girls to be harassed and assaulted and all kinds on the streets. And then you've got the local councillor speaking the truth. So I'm really interested to hear what this guy says. So we're going to jump into this video.
All that taxpayer money. Not for exactly here. So I'm the councillor for the neighbouring town where we also have a hotel. And as you can see from what you've seen today, firstly, I just want to say that this is local people here. Yeah. They are fed up. They are angry. I do not condone any kind of violence or bad behaviour, but I have to say it's been encouraged by the far left people that turned up for trouble. And all that taxpayer money that is being spent right now on protecting them, 23 police officers just in a line there, is all because people turned up for trouble tonight. But it wasn't the people of Epping that turned up for trouble. It's the far left wrong-uns that showed up who have no moral argument as to why that hotel should be here, nor why it should be housing people that enter the country illegally, that we know are a danger to our society generally and have proven to be a danger to this town. And I speak on behalf of probably every single person in Essex as an Essex County Councillor, and frankly as the only county councillor standing up to this, when I say the government needs to control our borders. We have uncontrolled mass immigration to this country, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of young fighting age men every day coming to a community near you if this doesn't stop, and we have to get this hotel closed.
What kind of message does it send if it only takes 9 to 8 days for someone to commit a sexual assault, having come from where, Ethiopia was it? I mean, what kind of message does that send to every other hotel across the country?
Well, of course we need to let that trial do its thing. I'm not going to comment on that specific, but what we do know know is that people that come into this country illegally, they do commit offences, including crimes like sexual assault. We know, for example, Afghans are statistically most likely to commit those offences, and we've just had the wholesale importation of them secretly. But what is more important is that we know there's a direct correlation between illegal immigration and crime in communities like Epping, and that has got to stop.
Yeah, but how do you feel that this man was an Ethiopian, so he doesn't really fit the mould if you look at the sexual assaults, you know, Afghanistan, Eritreans are up there, but not Ethiopians. So how do you know who's going to commit these crimes, right, if you're going to base off nationalities and ethnicities?
How many from the UK do it? Yeah. That's the answer to the question, isn't it? Do people
Right
from the UK behave like
there.
that? Are people from the UK brought up to behave like that? And I'm not saying that anyone that's not from the UK is brought up to do other things, but Britain has its own culture, England has its own culture, and people in this country are brought up a certain way and behave a certain way. Other cultures are not compatible with this country, and that is clear from the way some people behave. But also, this is what happens when people fail to do integration. Now, immigration as a whole has done great things for this country. It has never built this country, but it's done great things for this country. And we all know that. We see second, third generation immigrants here today protesting because their families came here and contributed and helped make this country better. Not come to this country to take the mick, to fleece the taxpayer, to fleece.
Yeah, but
not for exactly here. So I'm the councillor.
Jamie McIver. I just wanted to get his name really quickly because he was
Can
very,
I take
very.
him for a drink? Can listen? I'll take him for dinner, man. This dude is someone that I could really get along with, right?
Yeah.
So sorry. Go on, Jordan. It's your show, man. I'm just saying.
I was just going to say he was so well articulated. He had clear, concise, factual points to back up his argument. He said that the left-wing agitators that were being brought in had no logical argument for why that hotel should be there or why those people should be there. He said, despite the fact that this example may have been from Ethiopia, if you saw the chart as well, the people from Britain, and that is per 100 people, by the way. Now, obviously, I understand that there are a lot more hundreds of people from Britain in Britain. You'd fucking expect that. We're in Britain. But for every 100 people, only 2.6 sexual assaults, whereas Afghan was right up the top with 86.6 out of every 100. That is alarming. That's like, you know, it's no wonder that they're all being tarred with the same brush at that point. When you're seeing statistics that quite horrifying, you know. He also made very clear points about the only people wearing masks were the left-wing agitators being brought in, that they were all local people protesting. He was from a neighbouring town, so he was a councillor from a neighbouring town. He wasn't the councillor of Epping Forest, I don't believe. But it was just so well articulated, and he's saying the same things that we're hearing replicated across the country, nationwide. Genuine concerns. These things shouldn't be happening. These crimes can be avoidable by just securing the borders in the first place, you know, and by not having a betrayal government, treasonous government that are shipping in hundreds of thousands of migrants and then taking out super injunctions on the media so they can't tell us about it.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of unforgivable for a government that's supposed to have one main first job, secure the borders and keep civilians safe. They're just not doing it. They're like almost going to the civilians, we'll do what we want. You know, and it's quite alarming, really. Being a citizen of I'm not going to say Britain. Britain's a lie. United Kingdom, you know, and a proud Englishman. I am, you know, and you too as well, Flopper. I'm
absolutely, yeah, sure. Absolutely.
You know, so it's heartbreaking, it's disturbing, it's worrying, it's very concerning that the government are it's almost like they've doubled down on the ignorance side of it, turn a blind eye and pretend it's not happening, and call everyone that says otherwise far-right thugs. You know, and just that statement we saw earlier from the headline as well, that the fact that Number 10 had condemned the far-right thuggery. It's straight back to that fucking dog whistle again, isn't it? Far right thugs. You know, and there's only so much more of it the people of the UK are going to take at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So a couple more quickly before we come to an end on the show there. I will optimize for sound again, just because obviously you're telling people to remain peaceful, as I advise they do, falls on deaf ears when people's wives and daughters are getting sexually attacked by illegal immigrants. This isn't just Epping, it's everywhere. I feel so angry and frustrated. The British can see what's being done to them. And they're absolutely right. Then you've got here, let's wind it back to the beginning. Just look at the police presence on the ground. That's the protection that immigrants that will attack our children without prejudice will get. That's the effort, the response. And I just wanted to point this out, and kudos to Mitch Media as well, credit to him for the footage, and to the people before the footage borrowed from the show, just to highlight what's really going on. I mean, there's what, four police wagons, 2 undercover cars, several police cars. There's more black police wagons here as well, we hadn't seen earlier. There's another 4 of them. 5 riot vans there. It's insane, isn't it? You know, and yet if you were to ring the police and say there's a burglar breaking into my house, they might not even turn up until the burglary is well and truly over with, or until your family have been attacked or you've been physically hurt. Sometimes, in some cases, not even turning up for a day or two, and then saying, "Oh, we haven't got enough evidence, so we can't take it any further." You know, it's not good enough. It's really not good enough, and we're being failed by government. We're being failed by local authorities. We're being failed by the police force. We're being failed by the judiciary. There's clear 2-tier systems running in place throughout all of the above. We've got 30,000 homeless veterans on the street, and yet we've got 387,000 migrants being put up in hotels for the next 2 years minimum. I mean, if they put all of that money and that effort into housing the homeless, we would eradicate homelessness in the UK overnight, just like that. You know, and it's almost like it's being done on purpose. It's being orchestrated on purpose. And I know that many of us know that this is the case. We can't prove it yet. But with people like Lewis Blackpool on X doing a lot of freedom of information requests, we are close to getting the answers we need. We've got Rupert Lowe fighting for statistics on how many immigrants and foreigners are claiming benefits. Alarmingly, the government released a £1 billion a week figure. I think you can probably times that by 5, because that's just what we're claiming universal credit. That's not factoring in the cost of the PIP claims that are going in as well to run inside with that, the motability cars that these people get for being on PIP, and then you've got the surgeries and the NHS resources that are being used by, you know, interbreeding, cousin marriages, and the result of that, which is disabled children, which costs over 60% of the NHS's budget, by the way, you know. And then you've got the PlayStations, the mobile phones, the laptops, the clothing, the driving lessons, the gym memberships, you know, and all this other stuff to boot as well. It adds up. I can't see it being less than £5 billion a day. And if we can afford £5 billion a day, well, I mean, that's an alarming figure. And I'm going to need a calculator for this because my brain is not a computer. But 5 million billion times 365, and it is £1.825 trillion per year, which is more than our GDP. So just having them here for 1 year puts us £500 billion further into debt, and that's before we've spent a penny on anywhere else in the country. You know, and with Rachel from accounts holding the purse strings, I fear that we may not be able to survive much longer at this rate. Do you know what I mean? So it's scary. It's a scary thought on all fronts, and I think the government need a fucking wake-up call, if you ask me, because this is not sustainable moving forwards. You know, at the very least, we need to be thinking longer term. What are we going to do with these people? If they're only here to claim benefits for the rest of their lives, get them fucked off. You know, we've got other islands. I mean, we've got the Falklands out in Argentina. It would be cheaper to put each one of them on a plane, send them out to the Falklands, let them forage for their own building materials and build themselves a fucking home on a Commonwealth island. somewhere far, far away from us, you know. But it won't happen. The minute we start saying we're going to do that, they'll all bugger off anyway. Do you know what I mean? So we're in this position. Final thoughts. For me, I think that the government are doing this on purpose. I think it's being driven by organisations such as the Bilderberg Group, the Council of Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the World Economic Forum. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, they all work intertwined together. They're all linked and tied together. And if you've been following some of the meetings that the World Economic Forum have held during Davos in their yearly forum, if you like, they're talking about this stuff 2 or 3 years before it starts showing to fruition. So I think it's definitely a nefarious plot to dismantle the West, not just Britain, all of Europe, America, Canada. Trump standing in the way for America. Mark Carney, quite the opposite. He's opened the door even more. I mean, they're taking more immigrants than we are. I know it's a bigger country, but for population, it's not much different, is it really? Canada, there's most of their population are in like a very small area of Canada, and the rest of it is just vast wilderness, you know. But anyway, that's my final thoughts. What do you got to say, Flopper?
Well, for me, basically, what I do now is pretty much not much different from what Mind Over Mainstream ever did, really. Because thank you for including me on this episode this evening. But what I'm seeing is basically crime.
Yeah,
And the fact that I get now to speak about crimes of past tense is healthier for me than to batter myself with true crimes that are happening to the UK citizens and to all of us on a daily basis, whether it be through your tax fund, whether it be through your children's education, through whatever, the indoctrination of the system and everything. I think I got a lucky break by moving on to what I'm doing. And Jordan, I mean, you've always fought a good fight, and I hope you're going to continue, and I hope to come back and guest spot again. But
yeah,
damn,
definitely.
like I tell stories about crimes that happened 20, 30, 40 years ago, and you're telling stories about crime that is going on right now, and it won't be solved for the next 50 years. So I commend you for that, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Appreciate it. And it's been good working with you again today, man. I kind of missed it. It has been cool.
Absolutely. Me too.
Thoroughly
Me too.
enjoyed it.
It's been amazing.
I'm
Me
glad you
too.
joined me on this one, really, because I think just having an extra person, you know, an extra perspective, an extra thought, has it's just helped it flow better as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
No problem,
Now,
brother. I love you, man.
this is the part where I selflessly plug. So I'm gonna selflessly plug, and I'm not gonna feel any guilt for that. I'm just gonna turn off the sound settings just in case that jumps straight back in. Yeah, I thought it might do into Twitter. Um, let's get rid of that. So, Article 10 clothing, as you all know, I have talked about this before on episodes. I've actually got some really good new, much more family friendly, I would say, designs come in. Because some of these, obviously, you can't wear them to pick your kids up from school. Uh, and more than likely, if you're wearing one of these on a protest, then you're probably going to be plucked out of the crowd by the Stasi, I mean the police, and carted away in one of their buses. I mean, meat wagons. So yeah, so as I say, I've got new designs. They are ready to be uploaded. I've got to literally apply them to the t-shirts, to the right products, and then upload them to the store. And I will notify you guys when they are live on the shop. I'm hoping to have it done by midweek. And I'm quite excited for you all to see the new designs as well, because like I say, they're much more family friendly. They can be worn around the kids. Let's just put it that way. Um, and also, what would it be without a return from Richard Flopper if we didn't just plug his series True Crime with Richard Flopper one more time? And as you can see, guys, he's got 143 subscribers, which means that there's 200. There's another 104 of you guys on this show watching that can jump over there and hit subscribe just to show your support. You don't even have to watch the shows if it's not your thing, but just show a little bit of love for Richard Flopper because you know, we helped each other get to where we are today. And I'd love to see you guys show that in a little bit of support. So I expect
Thank
by
you,
the
man.
next
Thank you
episode,
so much.
I expect there to be at least a 2 in front of this 43. Um, just because of you guys want to show a little bit of love and you know, say hi, jump on one of the videos, jump in the comments, say hello. You know, even watch an episode or two. I'd tell you definitely worth watching the Lucy Connolly one. That could do with more views than it's got. It should be 59,000 views if you ask me. She needs a lot more support from the country going forward. So let's make that happen, guys. All right. Anyway, don't forget to smash a like on the video as always. If you haven't already subscribed and you've enjoyed what you've seen tonight, it won't always be the two of us, but it'll always be me and it'll always be well thought out episodes. So I really would appreciate if you jump on and subscribe as well. And also, just before I do go, I do want to show one more thing as well, because I don't know if anybody knows how to actually get to it. I've mentioned it a couple of times, but let me just jump onto Article 10 TV. Now, if you come to the channel now, there is a community area, although to be honest with you, I can't see it here. Oh, that's because I'm not signed in on the correct profile. Let me just get this big ugly bar out of the way. Switch account, let's jump into here. Oh, we've got another subscriber today. That's nice. Yeah, so I've got a community area now. So when I do posts, for me it comes up as posts, but for you guys you will have a community tab. And in here, as you can see, I'm giving you information about the next episode, which I was supposed to be going live at 8 tonight. So I will shortly jump on and do that. I might just delay it a little bit because this was unplanned until about 2 hours ago, wasn't it? We just sort of jumped
Yeah.
in and went, do you know what? Fuck it, let's do it now. Why not? But you'll get information here, but also you'll notice that there are polls where you can put your input into the next designs that come up on the store. And this is the sort of theme I've gone for now. Obviously, there is one that says twat in a hat, but the rest of them, I promise, are all family friendly. And you'll see some of these on the
Yeah.
store in the next few days. And obviously, you get involved. Put your comments on here. Put your suggestions in. Let me know. Did you like the last episode? What did you think could have made it better? Do you want me to add any new features in? And such and so forth. So I'm going to let Richard Flopper say goodbye.
I was gonna say, can I just say, Jordan was designing this t-shirt and jumper brand way back when we were doing Mind Over Mainstream, and I was always eager to dive on board, but there's certain things you can and can't wear. So there are some hard-hitting t-shirts and jumpers. If you don't care where you're at, and I don't care who I offend, you can wear those. But I always said I want to be less political. And it's funny enough, the fact that I did a year and a half involved in this political show, Mind Over Mainstream, with these guys who are very heavily political, and I'm more, I like to tell a story sort of guy. And then to finally see that he's started doing a bit more family friendly stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna buy some of those because I can wear them around town. I don't buy
Yeah,
clothes not to wear them. They're not to put in frames and put in posters. So like, if you're gonna buy it, you own it. You know, like,
yeah.
thanks for having me on, Jordan.
No problem. It's been a pleasure, Flopper. And as always for me, guys, just stay alert, stay focused, do your own research, and by all means, stay loud and proud. Because if you don't use your voice, you might just lose your voice. Good night and much love.
Yeah.